Ladies, gentlemen, and miniatures of all ages, Grounded 2 is officially out in early access, and I am so excited to see everyone get in and try out this game for themselves. Thanks to the folks over at Xbox, we have had early access to this early access, and I've been playing quite a bit of the game. We've already completed the Pro and Noob series, for anyone wondering, so my first time experiences are all preserved within that, but today I wanted to just use the knowledge that I've gained in this time to try and ease the onboarding process into Grounded 2, to help you come to grips with the very beginning of the game and some of the basics that will help you out, some tips, some things to think about actively to have the gameplay make more sense, and I will be keeping it as spoiler free as possible. I'm on a couple of nearly fresh saves in the footage to avoid anything accidental, and so nothing at all spoilery will be shown that wasn't already announced in trailers and developer interviews before release. First up then, before you even start your world, you've got the difficulty settings. Mild, medium, and woe are all the variations of the standard survival experience with the story and everything like that, and what this does, for the most part, is change the damage and health of bugs, as well as the actual effects of the survival mechanics, the thirst and hunger. Mild is recommended for first-time park goers, so it's not necessarily a true easy mode, but having played through the whole thing on medium specifically, there were only a few fights, even on that difficulty, that were truly challenging, and they were ones that the game definitely intended to be tough. And then there's also woe mode, which is the hard mode, and this is the only mode that has friendly fire on for multiplayer as well. It's worth noting that you can swap a standard game between any of these three difficulties at any time that you want. You are not committed to your first choice. And so if you want to brutally murder your friends at any point, you can always just swap it to woe difficulty for 2 minutes, then flip it back. The other options here are creative mode, which is essentially the mode where there is no story going on to follow, no hunger or thirst to manage, and no resources required for any sort of building or crafting. So you can use this if you just want to explore and build to your heart's content with no other concerns. You can start with all the mutations unlocked and stuff like that as well. This is basically the sandbox version of Grounded 2 for anyone who would prefer to play it like that. And this is an awesome other way to play, but my personal opinion is that it is a lot more fun to play in the creative mode once you've done the standard experience playthrough first and at least gotten through the story and seen what this new world for Grounded is all about. The two options here then are without bugs, which just makes no bugs spawn anywhere in the world, or with bugs, which makes the bugs spawn as usual, but they don't get aggressive with you. Then there's the custom mode option, but that's not currently available. They've said this will be added in an update at some point before proper 1.0 launch, and this will allow you to fiddle with the actual settings a lot more specifically and particularly than the preset options that we're choosing between here. Moving on to in-game then, right out of the gate, once you get into the park proper with your scab, you should have a look at the Mutations menu. This has a lot of really important things for your journey ahead, and it's important to see what they are. Some of these will remain question marks until you happen to come across their unlock condition, but the ones that are visible are worth having a look at, mostly because it will define how you choose to keep playing. The way that you unlock mutations in this game is by doing things in the game. The fighting styles require killing bugs with their related weapons, and a lot of the other mutations require certain actions, like the travel speed increase mutation requires you to find places of interest, or the stamina based mutation requires you to fully deplete your stamina bar a ton of times. So you want to look at these mutations and aim to complete the ones that seem interesting or important for the way that you want to play, almost like side objectives that you complete while doing whatever your main focus is. And at least for the fighting styles specifically, there is an extra bonus power at full ranks of the mutation. That said, I will go in depth on the fighting style mutation specifically, as those have a quite large effect on gameplay long term. This is Grounded 2's way of sort of pushing you towards trying to stick with one type of weapon as a main sort of option a bit more than the others, or at least until of course you've played tons of hours and unlocked every one of these mutations completely. But we can look in creative mode to see the full unlocked version of every fighting style. Little Fist is the punching mutation. It gives you a stacking debuff on enemies that increases the damage they take from charged attacks, with the final upgrade at rank 3 giving you 2 stacks of buildup per punch and increased stun damage with your fists as well. So what you could essentially do with this as a mix is apply a bunch of stacks to an enemy and stun them with your fists, then take out one of the weapons that mixes with our next one, which is the Smasher. This is for club attacks, which applies to both one-handed and two-handed clubs, but if it deals smashing damage, this is what applies to it. The Smasher perk gives you increased stun buildup with club attacks, which is solid, but then the final upgrade as the Club Master perk for increased damage with clubs against stunned creatures. Javelineer applies to spears specifically, and it makes throwing attacks with spears do more damage, as well as reflecting some damage that you take back as well, which actually does help out with a lot of the smaller guys. Spearmaster is the final unlocked perk for this one for fully upgrading it, which makes charged attacks attacks with spears do bonus damage. Assassin is for the new dual wield weapon type, your daggers, claws, scythes, and this is a really neat new thing added to Grounded 2. The Assassin perk gives increased crit chance on dash strikes, which are your charged attacks with daggers, and then also you get increased damage on critical hits just in general with this weapon type as a whole. Dagger Master, the final upgrade perk for full mutation, gives you increased crit chance for a short duration after any kills you get with this weapon type, which is a really fun thematic perk that is great for doing stuff just out in the world or any fights that have lots of enemies. The Sharpshooter mutation is of course for bows, with the Sharpshooter perk making fully charged bow shots have additional crit chance, and Bowmaster perk making perfectly charged bow shots deal more damage, meaning when you release the shot just as it becomes a charged shot. Blade Master is essentially just for swords. Any melee weapon that is not covered by the previous categories is covered by Blade Master. It has the Blade Master perk, which makes sword attacks reduce enemy damage, which is a neat effect for survivability, and then the full upgrade unlocks the Sword Master perk, which makes you temporarily remove your stamina regeneration timer when you hit an enemy with a sword. This is very fitting for a more defensive playstyle because a lot of defense is based around stamina. And then finally we have Whittle Wizard for the candy staves in the game, which are the magic playstyle. The main perk makes the Sizzle debuff apply more damage over time to affected enemies, and the Freeze debuff does extra damage when shattered as well. So this is quite specific, but actually very good if you are using those weapons. And then there's the Staff Master perk for the fully upgraded mutation, which is critical hit chance increase with staffs against enemies that are either fully sizzling or fully frozen, which is quite strong. As well, different armor sets will have perks built for the specific weapon types too. So you want to try and synergize your weapon with your mutations with your armor set as much as possible, because they all intermingle very purposefully. Next up, the game will start to point you in the direction of progress, and I recommend following the main objectives for a bit. This will get you the omni-tool and the ranger station. It will walk you through resource analysis, all that good stuff. Two things to keep in mind though for this part: you need to analyze a grass plank at the resource analyzer to unlock the workbench. The workbench is the probably most important building item that if you don't have it, you'll really struggle, and you need this to just craft most of the meaningful things in the game after the first 2 minutes. The other big thing is that to unlock the Omni Shovel, which is the digging function of the omni-tool, one of the required items for this is grass seeds, which aren't immediately obvious how you'd get them, but the best way to guarantee yourself a grass seed is to look up at the grass around you. Find the grass that is all clumped up and ends in an actual flower instead of just the little blades of grass, and when you walk up to it, it will say it is a grass flower. Chop down these grass flowers and a couple of seeds will drop on the ground where the top of the flower lands. Simple stuff once you know it for sure, but if you don't know about that, you could easily spend ages confused about grass seeds. Maybe you're just chopping down random blades of grass, like where are these seeds at? Another important tip is follow cables or man-made structures like lights for progress. Most often, when the way forward isn't immediately obvious in pretty much anything, at least story content, there will be a cable on the floor, lights on the ceiling, and when you are in front of an intersection of paths that will usually tell you the correct way to go forwards. And the early example of this is when you are first told to go around the back entrance to the ranger station. Some people will just coincidentally work out where it is, but just to drive the point home, this is trying to get you to follow the cable and learn that the cables and stuff in this game are essentially the equivalent of yellow paint being used on climbable objects in other games. Quick solution to early survival needs then, as in both food and water. Those who played the first game will be familiar with this concept, but for anyone new, water tends to collect as dew, which hangs from blades of grass in the world and is relatively plentiful if you just look around for it. If you cannot reach it by jumping, slap the grass and the water will fall to the ground, and then you can drink it. As well, there is a leaky pipe directly above the first ranger station that collects a water droplet or two every single day, for an easy guaranteed source right beside where you'll likely be setting up your first basic tent anyways. As for food early on, mushrooms are the super basic option, but they aren't great, honestly. In my opinion, your best two early sources are aphids and weevils. Both of these make very particular noises when they are near you, and so if you just get used to hearing these two sounds, you can get good at reliably finding a basic food source anywhere in the world. For healing specifically, just make sure that you vacuum up any plant fiber and sap that you see early on so that you can craft a nice pile of bandages to carry around with you. And once you have your omni-tool bust function unlocked, you should make sure to bust any big sap deposits that you come across as well. As for combat specifically, there are a couple of things that I think are really important to either know or just adjust to early on. These being the dodge mechanic. In the first grounded game, your options were to get out of range of an attack or block it if you have something that can block. In grounded 2, there is also a dodge button that you can use for a quick burst of movement to avoid attacks. This doesn't completely replace blocking by any means in combat, but it offers a really good secondary option to use that can really help if you know when to do so, especially for things like bows, which you just cannot block while holding, so try to learn the dodge a bit early on and it will help you out later when you really need it. The other big general combat tip that I have is that a lot of the bugs will have blocking animations now, where your normal attacks will just sort of bounce off them. You'll get the blue glow, the same blue glow that you get if you block their attacks. Some of the bugs will even seem to have some sort of counter attack, where if they block a regular attack from you, they will even respond by hitting back. But most, if not all, blocking insects can have their block broken by doing a charged attack with melee weapons. This is something that will vary for each bug, as their blocking animations are different, so I can't just show you every one. But once you recognize that a bug is blocking, once you know what the animation is, try winding up a charge attack and breaking through it. This should give you a couple of moments of free damage as well, but be aware that sometimes a bug will end their block early and you have to stop your charge attack to just actually avoid damage. Past that, peep them insects. On keyboard, X is the peep button, and if you then inspect a bug while peeping, you will get a lot of useful information about them, like what types of damage they are weak to, what types of damage they are resistant to, and sometimes you'll even get information about specific weak points on their body that can drastically alter the rest of the fight if you take advantage of them. So peeping is important, and I recommend being a frequent peeper. Finally today I want to talk about Buggies, a really big feature of Grounded 2, and this is the term for the bugs that you make into your friends and can even ride like a mount. You'll get your first one of these relatively early on in the main story missions if you'd followed the story along, so if one of your main goals is getting a Buggy, the fastest way to do it is to just stick to the story. Once you have your Buggy though, there are quite a few things that are very helpful to know. First is that your Buggy will not drop carried items like planks if it is attacked while holding them. So for anyone who did lots of building and survival in Grounded 1 like I did, you will heavily appreciate that fact. Second is that the Buggies have their own health bar that regenerates when they are out of combat. So especially for smaller things like mites or even things like the larva, it's actually quite better to just fight from your Buggy instead of putting your own health at risk, which you would have to recover with proper resources. Possibly my favorite feature of the Buggy though is their gather mode. If you hold the gather mode button, which is on your UI, to enter gather mode, this will make your Buggy move slower, but automatically picks up everything around its face and everything that you're looking at with your cursor. This makes it really easy to just pick up a ton of stuff like plant fiber or springs or even things like the grass planks that you knock down or weed stems once you've already put them onto the ground. And anything that you pick up this way goes directly into your Buggy's inventory once your inventory is full. So essentially this just means that you can carry way more when out in the field than you would be able to without the Buggy. And in fact, it's worth mentioning you can actually do almost everything from the back of a Buggy that you can do on foot, with the exception being stuff like the omni-tool busting or digging functions, but the ant's default attack does count as the chop tool function as well, which is quite fantastic. Then the last note is if you ever get separated from your Buggy for any reason, you can hold the whistle command button, which is T on keyboard, and this opens up a proper Buggy wheel. You can use this to call them to you from here. Even if you have them stored in a nest and you wander off really far away, you can just use this function to call them from the nest in the field and have them run right to you and save you a lot of unnecessary trips at foot speed. That just about does it for today, and everyone, your starter guide to Grounded 2, to hopefully help you acclimate into the game nice and easily for the opening sections and set you up for success early on, with tips that I hope will help anyone from people who have never played the first Grounded game to people who of course played it loads. I hope you've enjoyed this and hopefully it helps you out. And stay tuned to the channel over the next few days for much more in-depth content on Grounded 2. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.